I now call the Chancellor of the Exchequer, the Right Honourable Rishi Sunak, to make a statement. Chancellor.
Mr. Speaker, before I begin, I'm sure the whole House will join me in wanting to send our very best wishes to my right honourable friend, the member for Old Bexley and Sidcup. I've been fortunate to work closely with him, and he is one of the nicest and most decent people in politics, a fantastic minister and a tireless advocate for his constituents. We all look forward to a speedy recovery and seeing him back in this place as soon as possible. Mr. Speaker, last week the Prime Minister set out the actions we must take to control the spread of coronavirus. With your permission today, I'd like to update the House on the economic situation we currently face, the action we are taking to support the British people and businesses through this crisis, and the factors influencing our outlook. Mr. Speaker, as the House knows well, coronavirus has already caused significant harm to our economy. The scale of this impact bears repeating. GDP fell by 18.8% in the second quarter of 2020. And while the economy grew as the country opened up over the summer, it remained 6.1% smaller than it was before the crisis. The OBR's November forecast showed GDP falling again in the final quarter of last year, and also forecast the largest fall in annual output for over 300 years. Even with the significant economic support we've provided, over 800,000 people have lost their job since February. And while the new national restrictions are necessary to control the spread of the virus, they will have a further significant economic impact. We should expect the economy to get worse before it gets better. Mr. Speaker, in response, the government has put in place a comprehensive economic plan. We have provided a fiscal stimulus of over £280 billion to fund our plan for jobs, to support public services like the NHS, and to provide financial support for millions of people and businesses. 1.2 million employers have furloughed almost 10 million employees. Almost 3 million people have benefited from our self-employment grants, taking total support for the self-employed to nearly £20 billion. Over 1.4 million small and medium-sized companies have received government-backed loans worth over £68 billion. Tens of billions of pounds of tax cuts, tax deferrals, and cash grants have been delivered to businesses. And the United Kingdom government has guaranteed at least £16.8 billion of additional funding for the devolved administrations in Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland. In response to the new national lockdown, we are extending and increasing our financial support. We are providing a bridge for people and businesses until the economy reopens, and to give them the chance to rebuild productive capacity. To do that, we have extended the furlough scheme to April. We're supporting self-employed people with a fourth income grant. And we've announced, alongside the introduction of new restrictions, an extra £4.6 billion to protect UK jobs and businesses. All business premises in England which are legally required to close, including in retail, hospitality and leisure, can now claim one-off grants of up to £9,000 for each of their business premises, benefiting over 600,000 businesses and coming on top of the existing grants worth up to £3,000 paid each month. We've also made discretionary funds of £500 million for local authorities available in England to support local businesses in those areas, on top of the £1.1 billion of discretionary funds we've already provided to local councils. Sadly, we have not and will not be able to save every job and every business. But I am confident that our economic plan is supporting the finances of millions of people and businesses. Across almost all areas of economic policy, we are providing comparable or greater support than all our international peers. And as the Office of Budget Responsibility, the Bank of England and the IMF have all recognised, our economic response is making a difference, saving jobs, keeping businesses afloat and supporting people's incomes. Mr. Speaker, now looking forward, there are signs of hope. Firstly, with the vaccine, we can start to see a path out of coronavirus. Vaccine rollout is our most important economic lever, and we've made available over £6 billion. We've now administered over 2.4 million vaccine doses across the United Kingdom. And by February the 15th, we aim to have offered a first vaccine dose to everyone in the top 4 priority groups identified by the Joint Committee on Vaccination and Immunisation. And the data shows there are potential sources of underlying resilience in our economy. In aggregate, we have seen the household savings ratio reach record levels, and taken as a whole, corporate sector cash buffers have improved. And of course, we have now agreed a new trading partnership with the European Union. We have removed that uncertainty from businesses and can now start to do things differently and better, not least in financial services, where in November I outlined for the House our plan to reinforce the UK's position as a globally preeminent financial centre. Mr. Speaker, while the vaccine provides hope, the economy is going to get worse before it gets better. Many people are losing their jobs. Businesses are struggling. Our public finances have been badly damaged and will need repair. The road ahead will be tough. Now it is time for responsible management of our economy, taking the difficult but right long-term decisions for our country. But, Mr. Speaker, I am confident that with this comprehensive support the government is providing, and above all, the determination, enterprise and resilience of the British people, we will get through this. And I commend this statement to the House.
We now head up to Oxford East, the Shadow Chancellor, Annalise Dodds.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and can I please start by joining the Chancellor in sending my very best wishes to the Right Honourable Member for Old Bexley and Sidcup. I know I speak for everyone on my side of the House in wishing him a speedy recovery. 6 weeks have passed since the Chancellor last addressed this House. In that time, the Prime Minister scrapped his proposed relaxation of public health rules, introduced a new Tier 4 level of restrictions for London and large parts of the South East, and then superseded all of that with the imposition of a third national lockdown. After the Prime Minister's most recent announcement, Parliament was, of course, recalled, and members were given the opportunity to ask questions of the Prime Minister, the Health Secretary, and the Education Secretary. But the Chancellor was nowhere to be seen. His sole contribution to a set of announcements that had profound implications for our economy was a 90-second video on Twitter, which begged as many questions as it answered. No indication of how long the new grants are expected to cover. No clarity on how the discretionary funding for local councils has been calculated, nor of how it will be allocated. And we heard of funds being provided to the devolved nations badged as new money before the Treasury hastily amended its website to reflect that this money had already been committed to in December. We heard nothing about what would happen to those people who'd started a new job since the beginning of November and who are now ineligible for furlough. We heard nothing about what level the fourth grant for self-employed people would be set at, nor when that grant will be made available. We heard nothing for those people who've been excluded from government schemes right from the very start. And we heard nothing about what the Chancellor will do to fix the broken system of support for self-isolation. I was relieved to hear this morning that the Chancellor had undertaken to address the House today, but I deeply regret that having last year blocked measures that would have helped to protect the NHS and secure our economy, today the Chancellor appears out of ideas, urging us to look towards the sunny uplands, but providing nothing new. The purpose of an update, Mr. Speaker, is to provide us with new information, not to repeat what we already know. In addition, the Chancellor just now gave a highly partial picture of the state of our economy, talking of a rise in savings, but not mentioning that over 5 million people are estimated to have taken on over £10 billion in debt just to get through the last year. Talking of corporate cash buffers, but not mentioning that City experts have predicted there will be over £100 billion in unsustainable corporate debt by the end of March. The Chancellor needs to acknowledge the reality of the crisis we face, a crisis made worse by his government's irresponsibility, with our economy having suffered the worst recession of any major economy, and he needs to act accordingly. So can I ask him to respond to those questions which businesses and workers desperately need answered? Will he update the furlough scheme to reflect the dates of this current lockdown? When will he set out the new incentive scheme he promised to provide for businesses which will now not receive the job retention bonus? When will he provide details on the next self-employment income support scheme? What does he say to people who've been excluded from government support schemes from the very beginning and who still aren't helped by today's announcement? How long will businesses have to make the new one-off grants last for? When will councils find out how the new discretionary funding will be allocated and on what basis it has been calculated? Does the Chancellor believe that those who are classified as clinically extremely vulnerable should be automatically eligible for furlough if they can't work from home? When will he fix support for those self-isolating when the evidence for change is overwhelming? When will his much vaunted Operation Birch actually start to deliver for struggling manufacturers? And will we have to wait until the budget for a recognition of all of these problems and solutions to them, as was suggested by his social media account? Mr. Speaker, we had all hoped for a more optimistic start to 2021 than a new national lockdown and yet more uncertainty about the future. But the people of Britain understand that they have to make sacrifices. They're doing their bit for the national effort while the vaccine is rolled out. They're fulfilling their side of the bargain. The Chancellor must fulfil his.
Chancellor.
Mr. Speaker, thank you, and let me also thank the honourable member opposite for her response, and in particular her comments about my right honourable friend from Old Bexley and Sidcup, which I appreciate. I think it is right, Mr. Speaker, where possible in this House, that we do acknowledge those areas, those many areas, in fact, where there is agreement on both sides of this House. For example, on wage support, on business support, on loan guarantees, on funding for critical public services, on tax deferrals, tax cuts, on support for renters, support for homeowners, on support for job creation, retraining, skills, on support for children learning at home, on support for the self-employed, on support for the NHS, on support for the vaccination rollout, and indeed on testing. I could go on, Mr. Speaker. The truth is, politics aside, there is in fact significant unity of purpose in this place. To protect the most vulnerable, to vaccinate our people as quickly as possible, to reopen our country, and finally, to rebuild and begin the process of recovery. Given this agreement, whilst it is right to acknowledge the difference in degrees and emphasis that the honourable member opposite poses, it is clear that on the fundamentals there is in fact little disagreement. Mr. Speaker, to turn to the honourable member's specific areas of concern. With regard to the formula for the local authority grants, I can tell her, as was also, I think, published, that the formula for the additional £500 million will be the same as the £1.1 billion that was issued shortly before the end of last year. With regard to the furlough dates, she will be pleased to know that the change in date from the original spring date through to the new date at the end of October, before the announcement of the new scheme and the extension, will bring an additional 3 million people into coverage for the furlough scheme, which I'm sure she will join me in welcoming, has protected over 9 million jobs over the past several months. It is, of course, already possible for people to be furloughed if they are clinically extremely vulnerable or indeed have childcare difficulties, but those decisions are, of course, decisions to be made by individual employers and their employees. It wouldn't be right for the government to put a blanket mandate in place. With regard to the various other questions, she is right that the budget is the appropriate place to consider those, given the scale of the response and indeed the fact that all of our major avenues of support have been extended through to the spring. She also, finally, Mr. Speaker, made one comment talking about this country having experienced the worst recession out of anyone. And I think it is important in this place that people do have the right facts, Mr. Speaker, particularly when they impact people's confidence and understanding of what is happening. And I must, if I can, gently point out some facts, which I'm sure the honourable member opposite knows, because I'm sure she will have studied this carefully. And she will know that when making international comparisons between the performance of our economy and others, it is important that we are careful, because everybody calculates things in very different ways. And indeed, as the Office for Budget Responsibility have mentioned in their latest report, which I'm sure she will be able to read, and indeed as the ONS have also highlighted, we calculate the public sector output in this country in a very different way to almost any other country. And it is very clear that the way that we calculate that output flatters other countries and disadvantages us when it comes to making those comparisons. And as those independent forecasters have pointed out, when corrected for that difference, Mr. Speaker, what you find is actually our economic performance is very much in line with comparable countries. It is not the worst, and I don't think it is good for confidence or people's understanding of the situation for that to be propagated. Mr. Speaker, throughout this crisis, the government has always been pragmatic. When changes must be made, we have made them, and when help has been justified, we have always provided it. And Mr. Speaker, we are now so close to the end of this difficult period for so many people that I would ask the honourable member opposite at this time to recognise that the national interest is best served by our cooperation, not partisanship. The vaccine rollout is the most important priority of this government and provides us with the path of getting out of this, protecting people's health and releasing the restrictions that are hampering our economic recovery. That should be our focus. I know she will agree with me on that, and it is in this spirit, in the best traditions of this House, that I hope we will be able to see out this crisis in the coming months.
Senator Horwich with Sir Bernard Jenkins. Sir Bernard.
Can I thank my right honourable friend for his statement and indeed welcome the continuation of these vital measures to support British business through this further period, while keeping an eye on hospitality sector and small businesses which are continuing to have a very hard time and may need extra help. But could I just invite him to recall how we had to put VAT onto energy-saving products before we left the European Union because of European Union rules. And having struck VAT off sanitary products, can we now look at other opportunities to use our freedoms now that we've left the EU to strike VAT off energy-saving products like solar panels and home insulation in order to promote the greener recovery that we want to see emerging from this crisis?
Chancellor.
I thank my right honourable friend both for his advice and helpful information about the hospitality industry which he provided to me over the winter period, which has been very helpful in formulating our response, and I thank him for it, and also appreciate his thoughts on future tax policy, which he will know remains for budget. But he's right to emphasise the importance of our green recovery, and which is why I was very pleased to make sure we can fully fund with £12 billion the Prime Minister's 10-point plan for a green recovery, of which ensuring we upgrade our buildings' efficiency with regard to heat and energy is a key part, with over £1 billion put aside for that, but I will bear his further thoughts in mind.
Right. Let's head up to Scotland to SNP spokesperson Alison Thewlis. Alison Thewlis.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank the Chancellor for finally gracing us with his presence and for once not redacting his statement. And I suspect that's perhaps because there's so little in here that's actually new. What's also missing is the additional £375 million he promised to Scotland as additional money on the 6th of January, lauded by the Tories in Scotland before the Treasury backtracked, edited their press release and decided Scotland's businesses were not entitled to the £9,000 English businesses will receive. So I asked the Chancellor, why? Businesses are still struggling with debt and the loss of income, so will he extend the English business rate holiday to allow Scotland to do the same? And will he continue the reduction in VAT to assist those in the struggling hospitality sector? The Chancellor acknowledges the 800,000 jobs lost, but not his role in the loss of those 800,000 jobs and the uncertainty that his stop-start furlough has caused. So will he commit to extend the furlough and the self-employment support scheme for as long as is necessary? No more arbitrary stop-start. And still, Mr. Speaker, the gaps remain. Freelancers, limited company directors, those refused furlough, pregnant women who've lost out, as well as those in annual PAYE and newly self-employed. So I asked the Chancellor, will those now submitting tax returns be included in the self-employment support scheme from the 31st of January? Hundreds of thousands of people are counting on being able to do this. Will he extend the £20 increase in universal credit, and will he finally expand this to include those on legacy benefits who have seen no increase over these past months? Will he increase the pitiful level of statutory sick pay? Mr. Speaker, I've said for months now that we will not be out of this crisis quickly, and I'm sad to have been proven right. And on top of this, Brexit is causing chaos for Scottish exporters trying to get their goods across the border. It is no wonder, Mr. Speaker, that Scotland is looking on at this shambolic Westminster government and deciding in poll after poll that independence offers a brighter prospect for our future than more of the same old Tory austerity.
Chancellor.
Mr. Speaker, I'm happy to address very directly the point about funding for Scotland and perhaps clear this up. Now, in recognition of the very difficult circumstances that devolved administrations were grappling with, as are we all during this crisis, the UK government made an unprecedented decision to provide an upfront funding guarantee to provide certainty and clarity for the Scottish Government so that it could make plans in advance of individual announcements being made and the appropriate Barnet sums being made available at that time. That was something that the Scottish Government, I think, had asked for, and it was something that was welcomed. It is also now clear, though, that the Honourable Lady opposite seems to think that is not a good thing, because the point about doing that is provide upfront certainty, but it's still also right to keep a tally on the various announcements as they are made about the additional sums that they do trigger for Barnet, which will net against that guarantee, and then over time the guarantee will be adjusted. Now, if I'm hearing from the Honourable Lady that she would prefer not to have upfront funding guarantees and actually prefer the system of only knowing Barnet consequentials on an announcement-by-announcement basis, then she should please write to me and let me know. But in aggregate this year, £8.6 billion in upfront funding guarantees have been made available for the Scottish Government, of which the most recent announcement did trigger Barnet consequentials will net off against that guarantee, and over time, as we have done, that guarantee will be increased over the year as new announcements are made. It's also, as far as I understand, Mr. Speaker, I'm not quite sure, if I could tell from the Honourable Lady's response, if businesses in Scotland have been offered an additional grant of up to £9,000 to help them get through the next few months. And perhaps she can clear that up for Scottish businesses, because that's what the UK government is providing for businesses here in England, and that money has been made available to the Scottish government through the guarantee, and of course we look forward to seeing how they use it. But it's also important, Mr. Speaker, this is not just about Barnet consequentials. We have always adopted a UK-wide approach to our support, and whether it's the furlough scheme, or the things we've done on VAT, or supporting people into employment, or indeed our loans, many businesses and people in Scotland have been supported. Because, Mr. Speaker, this is one United Kingdom government, and we will make sure that we provide support for our citizens in every single part of it.
Tom Hunt.
Mr. Speaker, the hospitality in Ipswich certainly welcomes the grant support that you announced last week. That is very welcome. But I must say that about a month ago I held a virtual roundtable event with the hospitality sector in Ipswich, and it was probably one of the most sobering virtual meetings that I've taken part in since this pandemic started. It was very sad to hear about the extreme anxiety they have. They've poured their whole life into those businesses that they're working, and there is still concern even now. So will my right honourable friend confirm that he will be reflecting on what further support might be provided ahead of the budget? And I talk specifically about the potential extension of the business rates holiday throughout 2021 and also the support on VAT, because there is a light at the end of the tunnel. But when we go into that much better place, I want to make sure that the Brickmakers Arms, the Kingfisher, the Belstead Arms, the Poole Social Club, the California Social Club, which I'm now a member, and as stakeholders, I own part of it now, I've become a member, are there with us. Because
Order. It's going to be short. We put you on early to make sure that you can get things mentioned, but you can't make a speech to a question. I think that's more or less, we've got the drift of it, Chancellor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My honourable friend is a fantastic champion for his local hospitality industry. I hope I very much have a chance to come and visit the, I think, California Social Club he mentioned in Ipswich at some point in the future, and I will bear in mind his suggestions for how we can look at providing further support. It's a vital industry for our local communities, nationally employs over 2 million people, and he's right that they have borne the brunt of these restrictions and deserve our support as we emerge on the other side.
Let's head up to Scotland with Christine Jardine. Christine Jardine.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I first associate myself with my Liberal Democrat colleagues with the remarks about the Right Honourable Member for Old Bexley and Sidcup, who is someone I have come to greatly respect in my time here, and wish him the very speediest of recoveries. What we have today from the Chancellor, however, is just another series of patches, when what we need is a long-term strategy. Still nothing for the many millions who've been excluded from all financial packages, our independent retailers who need support against the online behemoths, and today we learned that there are already 250,000 businesses facing collapse. So when will the Chancellor tell us what his long-term strategy for recovery is? Will he extend furlough through the summer? And can he tell business what help there will be for them now they face an enormous burden of debt?
Mr. Speaker, with all our economic support now extends all the way through the spring. We'll of course have a budget on the 3rd of March where we will provide an update on the next stage of our economic response, both the coronavirus and indeed the economic outlook for the rest of the country as well. With regard to one specific question regarding support for businesses against online, the Honourable Lady will be aware that we implemented this year the digital services tax for the first time, which collects a levy on online marketplaces and that will collect significant revenue this year. I think that's a right step, and we're working with other countries to put in place a multilateral solution, which is the best long-term way to solve the problem that she highlighted.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I thank the Chancellor for his latest announcement of grants, which has been warmly welcomed by the hospitality sector. Can he confirm that the up to £9,000 that he's made available is indeed in addition to the up to £3,000 a month that has been made available to businesses that have had to close? But he will be aware that businesses in the hospitality sector will continue to face some real challenges in the coming months in order to play a part in our recovery. So could I ask him to reflect very carefully on what further support we might be able to make available to this vital sector in the budget?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I can confirm that the £9,000 is an additional to the monthly grants of up to £3,000, which means over the next 3 months, businesses could receive up to £18,000 of total cash support. And I will bear in mind other avenues for future support. As I said, as we come out of this, it will be important that the hospitality industry is given every possible chance to succeed and flourish.
Let's head to Northern Ireland with Sammy Wilson. Sammy Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Chancellor has said that we are now seeing signs of hope, and especially because a deal has been struck with the European Union. It doesn't look like that in Northern Ireland, where supermarket shelves are empty. Thousands of people are being sent letters from suppliers in England that neither they personally nor their businesses will any longer be supplied with goods. The steel industry today has simply received a letter from HMRC telling engineering firms that they'll have a 25% tariff imposed on steel, which they bring in here. And companies which sell to goods to GB have been told that they will not get a refund on the taxes which they have to pay, even though their goods are not going into the EU. All of this is brought about as a result of either a lack of knowledge by officials in HMRC, or else reneging on the promises that the government made that there would be unfettered trade and access for UK firms selling in Northern Ireland and vice versa. What is the Chancellor doing about the impact which his department is having on businesses in Northern Ireland?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm very sorry to hear about some of the examples that the honourable gentleman raised. I know goods in aggregate are continuing to move smoothly between Great Britain and Northern Ireland, and I'm not as aware of any significant queuing, and individual issues are being addressed by UK authorities. I would also say my right honourable friend, the Chancellor for the Duchy of Lancaster, I know is talking with colleagues from across this House to make sure we're kept abreast of any particular issues so we can look to resolve them as we can, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Harlow with Robert Halfon. Robert Halfon.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Chancellor will know that I've worked hard and lobbied for financial support for Harlow's small businesses, and I really welcome the financial package worth well over 160 million so far for our town. However, I have been contacted by many businesses in my constituency who've yet to receive much of the grant funding they've been allocated, such as Carol Bush, the wonderful landlord of the Golden Swift pub, because Harlow Council is yet to distribute it. Can he set out what steps he can take to ensure that councils like Harlow and across the country distribute these grants from the government immediately, as they should have already done, to help our hard-pressed businesses?
Mr. Speaker, my honourable friend is right that this cash should get to businesses as quickly as possible. I can confirm to him both the guidance will be published this week. Cash should be with local authorities as well by the end of this week from central government, at which point it will be up to them to distribute it as quickly as possible. I know they have been focused on this in the past several months, so hopefully this process can be as quickly as we all need it to be.
Let's head up to Merseyside with Bill Esterson. Bill Esterson.
Infection rates in Sefton have more than doubled in the last week. Hospital admissions are up by 50% as well. Those people who've been excluded from financial support so far want to reduce infection levels and hospital admissions. They want to, by staying at home, protecting the NHS and saving lives, they want to play their part too, but they need his help to do so, Mr. Speaker. What is the Chancellor's objection to using the £2 billion which the large retailers have returned in unused business rate relief, which would enable the many freelancers, self-employed people, people who run small firms, people who changed jobs at the wrong time, to play their part in the national interest while we wait for the vaccine to be rolled out?
Chancellor.
Mr. Speaker, I think the party opposite had called for that money, the £2 billion, to be used to support small businesses, particularly retail and hospitality businesses, which, of course, we have now supported to the tune of £4.5 billion. But I know it'd be nice to spend the same money twice. With regard to those who need help supporting for self-isolation purposes, Mr. Speaker, we have, of course, made available £500 to those who need help on a means-tested basis for self-isolation, and that money is being worked through with local councils and the Department for Health.
Mr. Speaker, given the state of public finances and as we look to the post-COVID recovery, can I ask my right honourable friend to resist any calls in his forthcoming budget for increases in public expenditure? This needs to be a private sector-driven recovery, most importantly by small businesses who will provide the employment and prosperity that we'll need going forward if we're to fund our public services in the future.
Mr. Speaker, my right honourable friend is absolutely right and has spoken, written passionately about this his entire career. I firmly agree with him. This must be a private sector-led recovery. Government can't and shouldn't do everything. We can support free enterprise by investing in skills and innovation and infrastructure, but ultimately it will be those small and medium-sized businesses who create the jobs that we desperately want to see.
Let's head up to Widnes with Derek Twigg. Derek Twigg.
my honourable friend from Sefton. I'm very disappointed that the Chancellor has not given support for the many people who are self-employed who are not getting help. But my question is this. The Chancellor appears to have little appreciation of how low people manage to survive from week to week. Given the huge coverage today pleading with people to stay at home and follow the rules, I would have expected the Chancellor to have announced better support for those who need to isolate. Mr. Speaker, the fact remains that some people who should be isolating will go into work because they are struggling to put food on the table or pay their heating bills and cannot afford to lose any income. I ask the Chancellor again, will he go away and look at what extra support can be given to ensure that people isolating do not lose any income and it gives them an incentive to stay at home?
Mr. Speaker, we have in fact put in place payments to financially support those who need help when they're asked to stay at home. Those are available up to £500. And as we have now reduced over time the period of self-isolation, the real value of those payments has actually increased, in some cases by 20, 30 or 40%, depending on when people were contacted. But more generally, throughout this crisis, this government has always made sure that we look after the most vulnerable. That is clear in the measures that we've taken and clear in the data that was published over the summer, showing that those on the lowest incomes have had their situation protected the most by this compassionate Conservative government.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In normal times, a successful British aviation sector supports 1 million jobs in this country. Will the Chancellor look urgently at what can be done best to ensure a rapid recovery for the sector heading into the summer? And in particular, as he prepares his budget, will he look at whether it makes sense for us to have one of the highest levels of air passenger duty anywhere in the world?
Mr. Speaker, I thank my honourable friend for his question. He's right, and is right to passionately champion both our aviation and aerospace sectors, which are critical to our economy. I'm grateful for the help that he gave in helping design a test and release policy for quarantine and arrivals, but also in campaigning for business rate relief. For airports, up to £8 million per airport, that's benefiting dozens of our regional airports up and around the country. I will bear in mind his measures for forthcoming budgets, but like him, I want to see our industry return to its strength.
We head up to Scotland with Gavin Newlands. Gavin Newlands.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And just for the record, the Chancellor said he was unsure of what the Scottish Government were going to do with regards to business top-up grants. It's just been announced, and larger hospitality businesses will can claim up to £25,000 in Scotland. But due to his intransigence, the £3 million excluded looked like going a full calendar year without support. This is absolutely shameful. The fact that the £20 per week uplift to universal credit was not applied to legacy benefits is equally shameful. I wonder if the Chancellor could tell my constituents about to lose that £20 when Minister after Minister admits they couldn't survive on universal credit rates. Why and how he expects so many of our constituents to do just that?
Well, Mr. Speaker, the Scottish Government has obviously control over its tax-raising power and indeed has the ability to top up and design benefits. So if it's something that the Scottish Government is keen to do, they have the ability to raise the tax to fund a permanent uplift in the welfare system, and I'm sure that's an opportunity that the Scottish Government can take up if they want to and see fit to do so.
Let's head up to Harborough with Neil O'Brien. Neil O'Brien.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As well as the 18,000 people in my constituency who benefited from the furlough, businesses here have benefited from more than £50 million worth of loans. As we move into the recovery, we need to make sure that they're creating jobs, not held back by excessive debt repayments. So what is the Chancellor going to do through Pay As You Grow or other schemes to make sure that they can get on with the business of creating wealth and creating new jobs?
Mr. Speaker, my honourable friend is absolutely right about the importance of cash flow, and he's right to highlight Pay As You Grow, which means the 1.3 million businesses who have benefited from bounce-back loans will have the opportunity to significantly extend their repayments for those loans. What we have done by extending the repayment term to 10 years from 5 means that we cut the average monthly payment by almost half, from just over £500 to just over £300. The businesses also have the option to move to interest only, which further reduces the payment to around £60 or £70 on a typical loan. That extra cushion will make sure that businesses can save their cash for driving their businesses forward as they reopen after these restrictions.
Let's head to Northern Ireland with Stephen Farry. Stephen Farry.
Mr. Speaker, I do acknowledge the scale of the financial support that has been provided by the Chancellor, but almost a year on, there's a stubborn refusal to address the needs of those who are excluded, often by what are seen as very arbitrary rules. So can the Chancellor confirm that the Treasury has indeed received a number of constructive proposals as to how existing schemes can be modified without the risk of fraud? And will he give a commitment to give those proposals a fair consideration and, where appropriate, make back payments?
Mr. Speaker, I'm happy to give the honourable gentleman the assurance that my honourable friend, the Financial Secretary, has met with various groups and received various proposals, and of course we will give those proposals fair and due consideration.
I said to Gloucestershire with Siobhan Bailey. Siobhan Bailey.
Stroud and the South West is packed with creative people and industries that need innovative support right now. And specifically, many UK film and TV productions have struggled to get insurance for costs related to COVID-19. Can my right honourable friend outline for the House what the government is doing to support this £4 billion industry for the UK?
My honourable friend is absolutely right to highlight the importance of the creative industries to the UK economy and indeed our social and cultural capital. That's why the government has created a £500 million film insurance scheme, which she rightly alluded to. Over 100 different film productions have taken advantage of that so far, and it is currently safeguarding over 14,000 jobs. It's that kind of thinking that we hope can help drive our recovery and support the industry that she rightly champions.
Mr. Speaker, in line with advice from the Royal College of Obstetricians and Gynaecologists, the Royal College of Midwives, the TUC and Maternity Action, will the Chancellor of the Exchequer today commit to amending the furlough scheme to cover the cost of maternity suspensions on full pay for women who are 28 weeks or more pregnant or otherwise medically advised to shield?
Mr. Speaker, there are specific provisions in place and guidance for employers with regard to calculating pay with respect to periods of maternity. Hopefully those are clear, but I'm very happy to look into the honourable lady's specific point.
I said to Bridgewater with Ian Little-Granger. Ian Little.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, as always. My right honourable friend is aware how good the Bridgewater and Taunton College is and how many apprentices they're training, not just for Hinkley Point, but many other organisations. But one of the unforeseen consequences of this pandemic is that £8 million of their funding goes into training these people. And unfortunately, a lot of employers are not taking on apprentices or making them redundant. These young people are not getting the chance to finish off their training to get the jobs and the skills they need. Can we please urgently look at the ways that these young people and these colleges can be empowered to train these people to get them into the workplace as soon as possible?
Mr. Speaker, I'm fairly certain we have already put in place a new matching service for those apprentices who sadly are unable to complete their apprentices with their current employers, but I'm happy to get the details and write to the honourable gentleman about that. But more broadly, like him, I support passionately further apprentices, which is why we've given companies a £2,000 bonus to take on a new apprentice and provided additional funding to both businesses and colleges to pay for the training that's associated with them.
Let's head up to Wirral South with Alison McGovern. Alison McGovern.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and well done, Chorley FC. If your only economic message is quibbling over how statistics have been used, then, Mr. Speaker, you haven't got a message. So now that the Chancellor is here with us, can I ask him if he thinks that there is so much unity of purpose, as he said, does he really stand by the plan to cut £20 a week from universal credit and to maintain the cruel two-child policy? So can I give him the opportunity now to make an announcement and do something today to make sure his appearance before us in the House today isn't a total waste of time?
Mr. Speaker, with regard to universal credit, we put in place at the beginning of this pandemic a temporary uplift to universal credit, which lasts all the way through to the end of this year. And of course, future tax and welfare decisions are rightly decisions that will be made at the budget.
Let's head up to Rother Valley with Alexander Stafford. Alexander Stafford.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Labour run Rotherham Council took a long time to devise a discretionary scheme to businesses and individuals excluded from support during the first lockdown, and actually ended up handing back millions of pounds to the government as they have not distributed it. Can the Chancellor assure me that this government has given councils the flexibility and support so that local businesses and the self-employed receive the full help they deserve, and that councils have a duty to distribute funds speedily and effectively so this mistake is never repeated?
Mr. Speaker, I can give my honourable friend that assurance. The discretionary funding is indeed discretionary. Obviously, I and the government doesn't know the exact economic circumstances of every local area, and it's right that local authorities are best placed to make those discretionary decisions. They will know their areas, they will know how best to support their businesses, and our guidance absolutely gives them the discretion to do so.
Send up to Birmingham with Steve McCabe. Steve McCabe.
Mr. Speaker, the Chancellor says he's supporting 95% of the self-employed, a claim he'll know is disputed. But even if we accept his figures, doesn't that mean 250,000 lose out? Surely writing off 250,000 people and their families isn't what he means by whatever it takes.
Mr. Speaker, those figures are not disputed. They're fact based on the returns that we actually have. Of the returns that we have from self-employed people, those that are majority self-employed, 95% of those people qualify and are eligible for the support. The 5% that are not, that he alluded to, are excluded because they have an income of greater than £50,000. He will have heard me say before, the average income of those people is £200,000, and I think it is right that we target support on those who most need our help.
Let's head up to Crewe Nantwich with Dr. Ciara Mullen. Dr. Mullen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I thank the Chancellor for the further one-off grants for closed businesses of up to £9,000 that have been announced. Businesses in Crewe and Nantwich are very grateful for the cash. But can the Chancellor reassure businesses that they don't need to choose between these one-off grants and the monthly grants, that both are available to affected businesses?
Mr. Speaker, I'm happy to confirm from my honourable friend that that is absolutely the case. They don't have to choose. They will continue to benefit from the monthly grants of up to £3,000 a month. But on top of that, to help them get through this difficult period, through to the spring, they can additionally receive a one-off grant of up to £9,000, which means cumulatively over the next 3 months, businesses could receive up to £18,000 of support. I know his businesses will warmly welcome that. He's spoken to me at great length about supporting his local hospitality industry, and I hope that this helps.
Let's head up to Orkney in Shetland with Alistair Carmichael. Alistair Carmichael.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Chancellor's assertion that the Prime Minister's trade deal means that businesses can now start to do things differently and better will have been heard with total incredulity by anyone whose business involves the export of seafood. The new procedures for export are a bureaucratic mess that has brought export trade to a grinding halt. One local fish trader told me this morning that a single consignment now has to go with no fewer than 17 different attachments, and another told me on Friday that he had lost £50,000 on a single consignment that he had been unable to export. What is the Chancellor going to do to offer help to fish exporters to get them through this very difficult time? Difficult because of DEFRA's own rules and procedures.
Mr. Speaker, what this deal provides is ensure that all those businesses that he mentioned have tariff-free access to European markets. Otherwise, there would have been significant tariffs on those exports. He is right. There are changes to our trading relationship. That has always been the case, and both the Prime Minister and the government have been clear about that. I know my right honourable friend, the Chancellor for the Duchy of Lancaster, is working through individual issues as we look over time to streamline and improve all our processes. And he will also know that we have invested a huge amount of resource in both the IT systems at DEFRA, but also in providing support for those businesses who need help to fill out various customs forms and meet new procedures.
Let's head up to Stockholm, Trent Central with Joe Gideon. Joe Gideon.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I welcome the £4.6 billion in grants announced last week for the retail, hospitality and leisure sectors. As my right honourable friend will be aware, businesses in the hospitality industry have been subject to restrictions since the beginning of the pandemic, leaving the sector one of the hardest hit financially. and I've spoken to many affected business owners and workers in Stoke-on-Trent Central. As we approach the end of this financial year, with the possibility of restrictions now extending beyond, will my right honourable friend reassure me that the businesses in my constituency, that the government will extend the existing package of measures, including the current business rates relief and VAT reduction, that acts as an important lifeline for many in this sector?
I know from visiting my honourable friend's local area how important hospitality businesses are to her, and whilst I can't comment on future budget decisions, obviously, I can give her the assurance that I remain very committed to supporting our fantastic hospitality businesses through this crisis so that they can recover strongly on the other side.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank the Chancellor for his statement. Northern Ireland is facing a double whammy. First of all, we're coping with the economic consequences of COVID. We thank the Chancellor for the help with that. But at the same time, we're also trying to deal with a protocol that is crippling businesses in Northern Ireland. South of the border, the Irish Revenue Authorities have said that all companies can circumvent customs to deal with this problem, whilst on our side of the border, HMRC is increasing the red tape. This protocol, Mr. Chancellor, is an unmitigated disaster. PPE equipment can no longer get into Northern Ireland. Foodstuffs can't get into Northern Ireland. M&S have produced a list of 400 goods that they won't bring into Northern Ireland. We now must invoke Article 16, and I would encourage the Chancellor to do that. And I'm sure the Scot Nats are delighted they don't have a protocol now.
Chancellor.
Thanks. Mr. Speaker, I thank my honourable friend for his question and also for registering with me some of those issues. I know that he and other colleagues are speaking to the Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster about individual issues, and I will be sure to follow up with him later today. He will know, and I hope it's helpful, that we funded with £200 million a trader support service, which is helping businesses in Northern Ireland adjust to the new arrangements. And I think 25,000 at last count had signed up, and I know that the response has been pretty good, but there's always more we can do, and I'll look forward to talking to the Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster later.
Let's head to Wiltshire with Dr Andrew Murison. Dr Andrew Murison.
Mr. Speaker, the Treasury has done really well supporting businesses and jobs in this crisis, but directors of small limited companies are many of the people who will ultimately be paying for the Treasury's support. So what can be done? Perhaps using a version of the FSB's suggested Directors' Income Support Scheme to help prevent hard-working linchpins of our economy on modest incomes taken as dividends falling through the cracks.
Mr. Speaker, of course, we always will give fair and due consideration to any proposals that we've received, and indeed, my honourable friend, the Financial Secretary, has met and received the proposal, and of course, we will go through it in detail.
Patrick Grady.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Musicians and performers in Glasgow North have already been excluded very often from his support packages, and they'll find it difficult to look towards a brighter future when they then hear that the government has failed to negotiate visa-free touring for them across the United Kingdom. Many of us have been warning that Brexit would simply compound the economic crisis caused by the pandemic, and this kind of decision seems to be proving the point, doesn't it?
Mr. Speaker, we've provided significant support to our cultural industries, and I think it's right that we highlight the contribution they make both to our society but also to our economy. I struggle to find any other countries who have matched the £1.5 billion of support we've provided, which has now gone out, I believe, to over 3,000 different cultural institutions, supporting the livelihoods and local institutions that indeed cover performing arts like musicians, and we know that they'll play an important part in our recovery.
Stephen Crabb.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. There are businesses in my constituency in Pembrokeshire that only made it through to the end of 2020 because of the outstanding support and intervention by this UK government. And the funding support that the Treasury has provided for the devolved administrations has been a key part of that. But does my right honourable friend share my concern that at the same time as businesses in my constituency tell me they feel shut out of the Welsh Government Business Support Grant Scheme, it does appear that Welsh Government are sitting on around £1 billion of unallocated funding support? Does he agree with me that this is not a moment for holding back support and we do need to be getting it to the front line, especially for small businesses?
Madam Deputy Speaker, I thank my honourable friend for the question. He's absolutely right. We must try and get our cash support out to businesses as quickly as possible. They are suffering as we speak. The Welsh Government has been provided with over £5 billion in an upfront funding guarantee, and he is right to highlight the importance of that money getting out to support the local businesses that he knows are so important to driving the future prosperity of the Welsh economy.
We go to Kate Osborne.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Analysis by the Resolution Foundation, based on the number of households claiming universal credit or working tax credit in April last year, found that 34% of working age households across the North East stood to lose out on over £1,000 a year if the uplift is cut as currently planned in April 2021, which, unless I'm mistaken, is still the case, although the Chancellor said at the end of the year to an earlier question, maybe he can clarify. And can I ask the Chancellor if he agrees with me that it would now be unthinkable to cut this lifeline given the ongoing significant impact the pandemic has had on low-income families?
Madam Deputy Speaker, it's important to recognise some of the other things that we've put in place for next year already, notably support with over 3.5 million vulnerable households with their council tax bills, £150 each, worth £670 million in aggregate, but also increasing the national living wage, Madam Deputy Speaker, above inflation at 2.2%, providing around £350 of benefit to those on low wages. And those are the kinds of things that this government will continue to champion.
Elliot Colwood.
Madam Deputy Speaker, and can I firstly welcome the furlough extension as announced by my right honourable friend the Chancellor, which will give many Carshall and Wallington residents a great sense of peace of mind. However, some businesses have been in touch with me with concerns about the October cut-off date due to be eligible to start furloughing staff. So could my right honourable friend outline if this decision can be reviewed or what other support businesses can access to help mitigate this?
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The change in the date from the original spring date to October will bring an additional 3 million people into scope of benefiting from the furlough scheme. I know that's something my honourable friend will welcome. With regard to additional support, he will know our comprehensive plan of whether it's discounted or government-backed loans, tax cuts, tax deferrals, VAT deferrals, business grants, business rates, holidays, or discretionary funding from local councils. All of that is available depending on the business circumstances, and I'd urge his businesses to look online and see what they might be eligible for.
Caroline Lucas.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The Chancellor said earlier that there's unity of purpose across this House. And one area where it's clear there is unity, with everybody except for him, is that more support is needed for the excluded. It frankly beggars belief that he has yet again come to this House with nothing to announce for them. So I urge him to urgently look at the DIS scheme for directors of small limited companies. It's been on his desk since November. But there's also the recently self-employed still left out in the cold, freelancers, those who combine PAYE and self-employment, women who've taken time out because of pregnancy, all still utterly abandoned. I want to know how he has the gall to continue pretending that he's doing enough for my constituents and millions like them who are still left in poverty and despair.
Madam Deputy Speaker, with regard to our support for the self-employed, it's worth, not that you would know it from what the Honourable Lady said, that it's worth knowing that almost 3 million people have benefited from support to the tune of around £20 billion. I do believe that's comprehensive. It's indeed certainly more comprehensive and generous support than almost any other country that I can find has provided. But of course, we will always look at other suggestions we will receive, and I will continue to do that.
Simon Fell.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. As the pandemic continues, it's only right that the government provides further financial assistance to support jobs and businesses, which is why I welcome the £4.6 billion in funding for grants announced last week, which will benefit people and businesses across Barrow and Furness. However, does my right honourable friend agree with me that in the long term, we have to ensure that we return to sustainable public finances in order to build resilience from similar shocks in the future, whatever they may be?
I think my honourable friend makes an excellent and insightful point, and this is about resilience when it comes to public finances. He used the word well. We now have faced two supposedly once-in-a-generation shocks in the space of 10 years, and we don't know what the future holds. But what we do know is that we want to encounter the next shock that comes along in as strong a position as possible, because ultimately that enables us to respond in as comprehensive and generous way as we have. And that's why, over time, we must rebuild our public finances to that position, as he said, of resilience and of strength.
I wonder if honourable members really do believe in being fair to everyone, because if they do, I implore people to ask short questions and don't make statements, don't make a speech. This is a statement by the Chancellor. It's an occasion for a quick question. I have 36 people to get in and 25 minutes in which to do it. Shall we try and see if members really do want to be fair to everybody else? Daniel Zeigner.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Now, behavioural scientists are clear that to get people to self-isolate requires they have the capacity, motivation and opportunity to do so. And so far, frankly, the £500 on offer isn't achieving that. So can the Chancellor tell us what assessment he's made of that scheme and what he's planning to do to improve it?
Mr. Speaker, I'm not aware of any science that I've seen or feedback on that scheme that shows that it's not doing what it needs to do. £500 is means tested, provides support, and indeed has increased in real value as the number of days required to isolate has reduced.
Alex Shelbrook.
Speaker, a constituent has approached me to say that many supply teachers working through agencies are not being furloughed because schools are open to key worker children. Yet these supply teachers are not being called into schools because most year groups are learning remotely. Can I ask my honourable friend to look at flexibility within the furlough scheme, similar to last time in this area, to assist agency workers?
I'd be very happy to look at this specific point that my honourable friend raises.
Andrew Gwynn.
Shadowed the Right Honourable Member for Old Bexley and Sidcup, and I want to wish him successful treatment and a speedy recovery. But around 130,000 individuals are ineligible for any support across Greater Manchester, second only to London in numbers. Many of them have been shut out of support since day one, almost a year ago now. So can the Chancellor confirm today that he is actually looking at this important issue and confirm today whether more support for this group is actually coming their way?
Well, Mr. Speaker, as part of the announcement made last week, £500 million of discretionary funding is being made available to local councils. That comes on top of the £1.1 billion that was made available at the end of autumn last year. And some of that funding, if the local councils want, can go to support the very people that he is talking about.
Felicity Buchan.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Financial services are very important to my constituency and to the country as a whole. I welcome the free trade agreement, but clearly there is more to be negotiated on financial services. Can you outline how we can retain this very strong relationship with Europe on financial services while retaining autonomy to adapt the industry to our needs?
Can I praise my honourable friend for being a fantastic representative of her constituents when it comes to financial services. I've enjoyed my conversations with her, and I look forward to working with her and the industry to make sure that we maintain a close relationship with the EU, but also that we look to capitalise on those new opportunities, making sure that London remains a preeminent global centre. The UK does its bit, whether it's on greening the financial system or taking advantage of new digital technologies. We must lead the world, and I know she will help me do that.
Tonya Antoniazzi.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The Welsh Government have not hoarded money meant for Welsh business, and it's very dangerous to hear the Right Honourable Member for Preseli Pems to be saying such things in the Chamber. They are getting help to those businesses, whilst the UK Government makes a big fanfare of new help, which turns out not to be new help at all. So today, can the Chancellor tell me and my constituents in Gower how much new money for Wales he has announced today?
Mr. Speaker, I'm happy for the Honourable Lady to refer to the answer I gave earlier, but if she would prefer that rather than give upfront funding guarantees, that certainty to devolved administrations, that she would prefer to return in a pandemic to piecemeal funding by announcement, then she should please write to me and let me know. But the Welsh Government has received, I think, over £5 billion in upfront funding guarantees, and as we make announcements, it's right that we highlight the amount of additional Barnett funding that flows from those announcements, so that can be netted off against the guarantee.
Andrew Selous.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. I'm delighted to learn that local authorities will be receiving the additional cash at the end of this week. Could I please ask the Chancellor to do everything possible to help local authorities get that money out of the door as quickly as possible to help businesses cash flow?
I agree with my honourable friend about the importance of speed. We try and keep the guidance the same, and that helps local authorities. Indeed, the guidance for the £500 million discretionary will be the same as the £1.1 billion, and that will help local authorities. They should have the cash by the end of this week at the latest, and then I agree with him, I urge them to get it out as quickly as possible.
Leila Moran.
Madam Deputy Speaker, as in many places, local pubs and bars in Oxford, West and Abingdon are on their knees. One of my constituents, a bar owner, told me that her business is slowly going under and that she stands to lose everything. The £9,000 is, of course, welcome, but the concern is will delay rather than stop them from going under. So will the Chancellor step in and save our locals by scrapping the rateable value cap for pubs, allowing them to access the Retail, Hospitality and Leisure Grant Fund, offer rent holidays during times of enforced closure, and guarantee now to extend the furlough scheme for as long as it is needed?
Madam Deputy Speaker, I think the Honourable Lady makes a good point about the importance of our local pubs. There is no rateable value cap on the grants. That was the case in the earlier iteration in the spring, but the latest grants are actually done by rateable value, and they are eligible for businesses with a rateable value in excess of £51,000. And of course, they also benefit from business rates holidays, so I hope that helps. But I share with her sympathy for the industry. I know it's difficult, and we must do what we can to help them.
Gary Sambrook.
Speaker. The Chancellor will know that the furlough scheme and the self-employed scheme has helped protect many millions of jobs across the UK and many livelihoods across the Birmingham Northfield constituency. But as he said, unfortunately, not every job is going to be able to be protected during this pandemic. And so can he outline the measures he's taking across government to help support those who find themselves unemployed?
I can give my honourable friend my assurance that the government's #1 economic priority remains jobs and trying to help people into employment. To that end, we've created various schemes and put billions of pounds towards them, whether it's doubling the number of work coaches, the Restart scheme for the long-term unemployed, or indeed our Kickstart scheme to help 250,000 young people at risk of unemployed find new work with government-funded jobs. And I look forward to working with him and delivering all of those vital initiatives.
Kirsty Blackman.
Thank you. A number of people are still in childcare vouchers schemes rather than having moved to tax-free childcare. There's a number of those who at the start of the pandemic did not realise how long the impact would last, and now they've racked up large balances that they will not be able to spend before their child no longer needs wraparound childcare. Would the Chancellor please look at those people who have got this large balance and consider putting in place some flexibility, or asking employers to put in place some flexibility, because they've ended up in this situation through no fault of their own?
I'm not familiar with the specific details that the Honourable Lady is raising, but I can see the logic of what she's saying if I follow it correctly, but I'll happily have a look at it and write back to her.
James Daly.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Can I welcome the Chancellor's announcement of an extra £500 million worth of funding for discretionary funding for local authorities in England? Can my right honourable friend confirm that councils have absolute discretion in the use of these monies, including, if they so choose, the provision of grants to self-employed workers or sole traders whose businesses are based at their home address?
I can give my honourable friend the assurance that these grants are meant to be discretionary. It's for local authorities to make the decisions at their discretion as to how best to support their local economies. The guidance for this should remain the same as it was before, and I do believe that gives local authorities the discretion they need.
Afzal Khan.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. A supply teacher in my constituency contacted me last week after being told she would not be furloughed despite being unable to work while schools are closed. Last summer, less than half of the supply teachers were furloughed, and in some cases were furloughed at just 80% of the national minimum wage. What steps will the Chancellor now take to ensure all supply staff are able to access the furlough scheme during this lockdown and prevent them from falling through the gaps?
Madam Deputy Speaker, as I followed the question correctly, I think the guidance has already been clarified and was already in place that childcare was a reason that people could be furloughed. But with regard to supply teachers, in any case, I will have a look at what the guidance says.
Mark Mingus.
I'd like to welcome the continuation of the unprecedented support provided by the Chancellor throughout this crisis. But looking forward to our economic bounce back, can I call my right honourable friend to extend the business rate holiday and VAT reduction, which have been absolutely critical to the tourism and hospitality sector and filed.
I know how important the tourism and hospitality sector is to my honourable friend's constituency and what a fantastic champion he is for it. I know how important those initiatives have been. Of course, future decisions of that magnitude will be for the budget, but I will take what he says into consideration.
Stephen Kinnock.
Deputy Speaker, community union self-employed members have raised serious concerns of discrimination in the self-employment income support scheme for those who have taken maternity or parental leave. They point out that eligibility conditions and calculation methods chosen by the Chancellor discriminate against women because they do not exempt periods of maternity leave. What steps has the Chancellor taken to ensure that all parents, and women in particular, are not penalised in their income support payments for having children?
Madam Deputy Speaker, the guidance and eligibility for the particular circumstances that the honourable gentleman mentioned have been published and are designed to be fair to everyone and take into account, as best as we can, everyone's varying different circumstances.
Dr. Jamie Wallace.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. My constituency, Bridgend, contains an award-winning nature reserve at Kenfig, some of the best surfing beaches in the world. The town of Porthcawl is a popular tourist town, and Bridgend itself is an historic market town. So it's of no surprise that the impact of COVID-19 on the hospitality sector has really hit my constituents hard. And many of them have written to me recently to ask me to support UK Hospitality's recommendations as to how the government can help, in particular on the extension of support on VAT and business rates. Does my right honourable friend agree with me that every step possible should be taken to support this vital sector?
Well, my honourable friend is right about the importance of this vital sector to our local communities and indeed our economy. Hundreds of thousands of businesses, millions of people employed, and like him, I'm keen to see it spring back to its former glory, and I look forward to hearing from him about how best he thinks we can support that industry into the future.
Zara Sultana.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Contrary to the government's briefings, the problem with lockdown isn't support bubbles or exercising with a friend. The key problem is that people are still being forced into work, with too many non-essential workplaces open and statutory sick pay so low, many can't afford to self-isolate when they need to. So will the Chancellor provide the economic support necessary for people to stay at home by ensuring that all non-key workers who can't work from home are furloughed on full pay and raising sick pay to the real living wage at £330 a week?
Madam Deputy Speaker, I mean, with regard to the appropriate health restrictions, with greatest respect to the Honourable Lady, I think it's best that we listen to the scientists, and she would have heard the Chief Medical Officer this morning giving his view on what the right approach to other restrictions is. And with regard to support, I think the furlough scheme remains one of the most generous and comprehensive anywhere in the world, and it's something I'm proud of and I know is providing security to many millions of people at what is a very difficult time.
Esther McVeigh.
The Chancellor will know that it was the blue-collar Conservative group who were instrumental in persuading the supermarkets to return the business rate relief they did not need. And we asked them to do that on the basis that there were many who've gone without support, and they agreed to do it on that basis. So will the Chancellor ensure that that £2 billion returned by the supermarkets will go to those who've been excluded so far from support because they cannot go another 3 months without any income?
Madam Deputy Speaker, I pay tribute to my right honourable friend's tireless campaigning on this issue, and she's a great advocate for the cause. She will know, of course, that we have just provided over £4.5 billion of support to many small businesses up and down the country, which I know she will warmly welcome and has also called for. And indeed, part of that is £500 million of discretionary funding for local authorities to support local businesses, many of whom maybe the people that she has talked about will be eligible for that support.
Paula Barker.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. For 10 months, 3 million people have been forgotten or excluded by this government, including several of my own constituents, such as Graham Park and Karen and Matthew Cox. The Prime Minister said last week these people will be listened to and support packages are there to protect people. So can the Chancellor tell us today clearly what package of support is actually available for these groups, how much is available, and when will people be able to access them?
Madam Deputy Speaker, rather than me recap every single thing we've done, it's worth bearing in mind when the Honourable Lady talks about the 3 million people, over half of those are people for whom self-employment is not their primary source of income. They are not majority self-employed. The average income from self-employment of those individuals is around £2,000 from memory. So it is actually the case that many of the other things we have done will be of more significant support to them. Indeed, the majority of those are actually employed and then can benefit from our furlough scheme. So I think it's not right to say that they have received no support. There's a range of things we've put in place in different ways, and many, many people are benefiting from them.
Jason McCartney.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The hospitality supply chain is crucial to the sector. The food and drink producers, the dairies, the breweries, the wholesalers and many more. Will the Chancellor look at extra support for the hospitality supply chain, such as with VAT and business rates, so that when the vaccine allows hospitality to reopen again, there is a supply chain there to support them?
My honourable friend is right about the supply chain, and he will know much of that supply chain also supplies the on-premises trade as well as the off-premises, so they will have some trade during this. But he's right that we must ensure it's there for the recovery. They will, of course, benefit from our furlough scheme, which is very comprehensive in its eligibility and very generous. But I thank him for his points and will, of course, bear them in mind.
Let's see if we can go a bit faster to try and get everybody in. Hannah Bardell.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. The Young Women's Trust found that because of COVID, 1.5 million women are losing income. 69% are claiming benefits for the first time. Half of young mums are unable to keep or find employment because of childcare costs, and a third won't report sexual harassment for fear of being fired. So can the Chancellor tell me how his government can possibly continue to justify the 5-week wait, have statutory sick pay at a disgracefully low £94 a week, and exclude many female business owners from help? Will he take proper action for women who are bearing the brunt of this pandemic?
Madam Deputy Speaker, all the support that we've put in place is indeed blind to gender, and no one is excluded on the basis of gender. I don't think it's fair to suggest otherwise. And indeed, one of the reasons I've been so keen to try and support the hospitality industry throughout this and encourage people to be able to go back to it when it was open was because of the social justice aspect, and it's an industry that disproportionately employs women as well as other groups that we want to try and see protected, and that will remain why it's a very important industry to me, and we must get it back to its former glory.
Marco Longhi.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. So, while politics is played with narratives around council tax increases, can the Chancellor confirm that the most important thing right now is support for local authorities to deliver public services in constituencies like mine in Dudley North? Will the Chancellor outline the steps the Treasury is taking to deliver this support, please?
Madam Deputy Speaker, my honourable friend is right. We have provided over £3 billion of additional funding for local authorities next year to help them get through coronavirus in different ways. And then within their day-to-day budgets, an additional £300 million of adult social care grant. And they are seeing one of the highest core spending power increases in a decade. With regard to the political points he knows that others are trying to make, it's probably worth bearing in mind that under the last Labour government, council tax rose on average about 6% every year. So far under this Conservative government, since 2010, it has risen just over 2%.
Carla Lockhart.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The Chancellor will share my desire to see economic recovery right across the United Kingdom, and I thank him for the support provided to sustain businesses in this difficult time. However, in addition to COVID-related challenges in my constituency, businesses are being hampered in trading by the chaos created by the Northern Ireland Protocol. Our local haulage company reports protocol-related difficulties costing their business an additional £48,000 last week. Another business in my constituency is being hit by 20% VAT on bicycle parts. Our second-hand car industry is facing wipeout because of the VAT margin scheme. The protocol spells economic harm for business and consumers in Northern Ireland. What is the Chancellor and his government going to do to remove the barrier to economic recovery and to free and unfettered trade within the United Kingdom?
Madam Deputy Speaker, I'm sorry to hear about the various examples that the Honourable Lady has given. I hope that the Trader Support Service can be of some assistance to her small and medium-sized businesses. It's something that we funded to the tune of about £200 million to provide that support for the changed circumstances, and I know 25,000 companies have already signed up and are benefiting from quite speedy support. But of course, I will keep a review and make sure that it's doing what it needs to.
Kate Griffiths.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I thank my right honourable friend for providing grants of up to £9,000 to businesses which are forced to close due to these new national restrictions. I know those businesses in retail, hospitality and particularly the pub industry in my constituency of Burton and Uttoxeter are very grateful for this safety net. Will my right honourable friend continue to review the support available to them to ensure their long-term survival and growth as we come out of the pandemic?
Madam Deputy Speaker, I can give my honourable friend that assurance. Hospitality is such an important sector for our local communities and indeed our national economy. I can't comment on future budgets, but I will bear what she says in mind, and she can rest assured that I will do what I can to support the hospitality industry and make sure they can drive our recovery.
Mary Kelly Foy.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Last week, the Chancellor graced members of this House with a 90-second video on Twitter announcing support for the retail, hospitality and leisure sectors. While I look forward to him delivering the budget on TikTok, these gimmicks leave businesses in the dark through a lack of scrutiny. So now that he has been freed from Twitter's time limits, would he be able to tell struggling businesses in my constituency just how long they need to make these grants last?
Madam Deputy Speaker, the grants that we've put in place are one-off but can help businesses through to the spring. But they will, of course, additionally continue to receive the monthly grants of up to £3,000 a month that will be paid throughout, which means over the next 3 months, for example, a business could receive up to £18,000 in cash support. And we will, of course, as the Honourable Lady said, have a budget before that time elapses on the 3rd of March, at which point we will set out the next stage in our economic response to coronavirus.
Conor Burns.
Madam Deputy Speaker, my right honourable friend the Chancellor knows not least from the conversations he had last November with businesses in my Bournemouth West constituency how heavily our local economy depends upon the hospitality sector and how hard hit they have been. Will my right honourable friend give me and them an assurance that he will look sympathetically at their calls to extend the lower rate of VAT and the business rate holiday? And can I ask my right honourable friend, what message has he got for this sector about their importance for the UK economy and for the well-being and quality of life of our citizens?
Well, I thoroughly enjoyed my conversation with my honourable friend's local businesses, and he mentioned exactly the right point, quality of life. This is not just about our economy and indeed about jobs. This industry is so vital for our well-being, and it brings spirit and life and vitality to our local communities. He can rest assured I will want to continue supporting the industry as I have done in the past, and of course I will bear what he says in mind for future budgets.
Liz Twist.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. A failure to make the £20 uplift to universal credit permanent would have a disproportionate impact on families across the North East, which has the highest rate of unemployment and the second highest rate of child poverty. Will the Chancellor now commit to make that £20 uplift permanent?
Madam Deputy Speaker, the Honourable Lady, who I have a lot of respect for, mentioned two things, unemployment and child poverty. We know that the best way to ensure that children don't grow up in poverty is not to grow up in a workless household, and indeed the rates of poverty amongst children who are not in workless households is 5 times lower, and indeed removing unemployment is the best and surest, most sustainable way out of poverty, which is why this government has backed with billions of pounds our various initiatives to support people into work, which I know she will support, whether that's the Restart scheme, the Kickstart scheme, doubling the amount of work coaches, increasing the incentive for people to take on new apprentices. Those are all the surest ways to help people out of poverty, and that's why we're committing billions of pounds to that end.
Well, we're officially out of time, but I will keep this running for a few minutes longer if people will really just be decent and be quick, because there are 2 more items of business here, and it's simply not fair on other people later in the day if this item of business takes too long. Caroline Noakes.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Retraining opportunities are going to be crucial as part of our economic recovery. I've been really impressed by companies like Openreach, who have made a promising target for more women in their programmes for employment. Will the Chancellor, my right honourable friend the Chancellor, also look at making sure that women are not excluded from the economic recovery?
Well, my right honourable friend is absolutely right, and I've enjoyed my conversations with her on this particular topic. And we want to make sure people can find new opportunities, which is why we have funded companies with bonuses to take on new apprentices, providing a universal entitlement to a level 3 qualification for the 37% of our adult population that doesn't have one, sadly, but also traineeships, which she would know about, which provide young people with a start into a work experience and then a job interview. Those are all the kinds of things that help people find economic opportunity, and we will make sure that women benefit equally from all of those.
Tony Lloyd.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Amy Pearce, Director of the small company in my constituency, was doing well until the pandemic, but since then, the turnover has dropped by 40%, but her costs haven't. She's now had to lay off her staff, which is massively regrettable. What can the Chancellor say to a small business like that they will be there when the pandemic ends, that the employment base and the economic base will be there in towns like Rochdale?
I'm incredibly sorry to hear about the honourable gentleman's example of his constituent, and it will be mirrored by many others up and down the country. As I talked about in my statement, the restrictions that we've had to put in place have had a significant economic toll on the country. Hundreds of thousands of people have lost their jobs and businesses are suffering. What we have tried to do is protect as many as possible. It's not possible to protect all of them, but with the support that we've put in place, I am confident that we are helping many businesses, protecting many people's income and saving many people's jobs, and I hope his constituents' business and many others can bounce back strongly once we're through this.
Chris Grayling.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I very much welcome the Chancellor's substantial grant support to smaller hospitality businesses in my constituency. It will at least give them a chance of seeing through a difficult period. But of course, I also represent a constituency with large numbers of small travel businesses that depend on the revival of travel, and particularly the aviation sector. Could I ask the Chancellor, as he prepares for the budget, to look at any way he can, as restrictions are lifted, hopefully in the spring, to help that industry and that sector get back on its feet again?
My right honourable friend is absolutely right to highlight the importance of the travel sector to our economy. I was pleased to work with him earlier to help put in place a test and release policy for our international travel, which I know was helping, and also to provide business rate support to our many airports, up to £8 million per airport, which I know has been of value. But I will continue to listen to him and others to see what we can do to support the economy as we recover out of this.
Ellie Reeves.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. We're nearly a year on since the Chancellor rightly introduced the Self-Employed Income Support Scheme, but despite having months to fix the gaps that have wrongly excluded millions, he is refusing to do so. The Honourable Member for Tatton asked the Chancellor whether the £2 billion in business rates relief being returned to the Treasury from supermarkets and other large shops could be used to immediately support those who have been excluded and received nothing. Could he now answer that question?
Madam Deputy Speaker, but the Honourable Lady's party called specifically, I believe, for that money to be used to support small businesses and high streets. And indeed, not only have we just done that, we have done it to the tune of £4.5 billion, not the £2 billion that her party was calling for.
Anthony Bryan.
Green finance has a crucial role to play if we want to build back better and also transition to a net zero economy by 2050. And the UK has a critical role to develop that sector internationally, not just as a global leader in finance, but also this year as president of COP26 and chair of G7. Will the Chancellor outline for the House what he's doing to develop the vital green finance sector?
My honourable friend makes an excellent point. Not only are we leading in the world in reaching our net zero targets, we're also a global financial centre, and we have combined the two to lead the greening of the financial system, which is an opportunity for us. We're going to issue a sovereign green bond this year, but also will be the first major economy to make mandatory tasks, the climate-related financial disclosures recommended by the International Task Force. That will help cement our global leadership, and I look forward to hearing from him the other things that we can do in this vital year for our journey to net zero.
Yvette Cooper.
A Castleford constituent, a single mum who works at a major company's distribution warehouse, has been told her employer won't furlough her while schools are closed and she has to take 6 weeks unpaid leave she can't afford. The school has said she can't have a place as they're overwhelmed with key worker applications. Does the Chancellor agree the employer's response is completely unfair? What should my constituent do now?
Madam Deputy Speaker, I'm more than happy to receive a letter from the Honourable Lady on the particular situation that she describes, but I hope she'll understand and she will know, having been in this position, it's hard for me to comment on the specific circumstances between an employee and employer. The furlough scheme can be used for those circumstances that she described. And obviously the school will be better placed than I to make the determinants on whether the constituent in question is a key worker. But if she writes to me, I'll be more than happy to follow up on the questions she raised.
John Hall.
Madam Deputy Speaker, can I add my support to the cause of directors who take income as dividends? As a former inspector of taxes, I have heard what HMRC have said, and I don't entirely agree with it, but I wonder whether my right honourable friend will agree to meet with me to discuss options that are available to deal with directors who take income as dividends.
Madam Deputy Speaker, my honourable friend, the Financial Secretary, has met with several groups and heard representation on different proposals. I'm not aware of another country that has found a way to support people's dividend income, but if my honourable friend has one, I'd be delighted to look at it if he sends it in.
Angela Eagle.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Does the Chancellor believe that the £22 billion cost of Serco Test and Trace has been spent in a way which represents the best value for money?
Well, Madam Deputy Speaker, the testing capacity that we have in this country is considerably increased from where it was. You remember at the start of this crisis, 10,000 and now we are doing, I think, several 100,000 a day. So that's a substantial increase, and it can play a part in reducing the spread of transmission. Obviously, given the new strain of the virus, we've had to put in place new restrictions, which is disappointing, but I still believe test and trace can play a role, especially as we come out of this, in suppressing the spread of the virus. But the Honourable Lady is right to hold me and others accountable for everything, every pound we spend of taxpayers' money, and I'm sure she will continue to do so.
Angela Richardson.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I have exciting, innovative companies of tomorrow located in Guildford, and they will be crucial to our economic recovery. Will my right honourable friend ensure these companies remain at the centre of his future plans?
My honourable friend is right. Our innovative companies are a great strength of the UK economy compared to others, and they will help drive our recovery. That's why we put in place the Future Fund, which was an unprecedented intervention to help 1,000 of our fastest growing startup companies with match funding. Innovate UK also made available £500 million of additional grants and loans through their innovation schemes. And most recently, we've committed extra funding for our startup loan scheme next year. Taken together, it's a significant vote of confidence in those innovative companies, and I look forward to hearing from her other ways that we can support them to help drive our recovery.
Martin Day.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Last week, when I challenged the Prime Minister over the lack of support for the 3 million excluded, he claimed that they had not been excluded. So can the Chancellor spell out what is being done to make the PM's word a reality, as I didn't hear anything today that will give meaningful support to my constituents who have had 10 months of zero income or government help?
Madam Deputy Speaker, I think it's just not right to say people have not available to receive any support. Obviously, I can't comment on the individual circumstances of every single person, but we have put in place £280 billion of direct support in a multitude of different ways. And then there is additional support that is not even fiscal. For example, mortgage holidays, which now 1 in 6 or 1 in 7 mortgage holders have taken advantage of. So, yes, it may be the case that people haven't been helped in the exact way they wanted, but with £280 billion of support in literally 20 different ways, this government is doing what it can to provide reassurance and security to millions of people and businesses through this difficult crisis.
And finally, Liz Saville-Roberts.
Diolch yn fawr, Dirprwy Lefarydd. The Welsh hospitality sector employs over 8.5% of the Welsh workforce and is even more important in rural areas such as Dwyfo Meirionnydd, where hospitality provides 27.3% of employment. Today's statement provided no new money and no clarity for struggling hospitality businesses that need to be able to make informed decisions in the coming months. Will the Chancellor therefore confirm that there will be no further announcements of extra funding prior to the March budget?
Madam Deputy Speaker, the Welsh Government has received over £5 billion of upfront funding guarantees to support their local economy, and I hope they will use it to do exactly that. But also, Welsh businesses will benefit from UK-wide interventions, for example, our furlough scheme, our grants, our loan programme, or indeed some of the VAT reductions. And I have said all of our support now extends through to the spring. We will have a budget on the 3rd of March where we will set out the next stage of our economic response to coronavirus.
Thank you. Between this item of business and the next statement, I will briefly suspend the House for 3 minutes. Order.